Hello, hello. All right. I think we have everything worked out now. First off, a couple of things. One, thank you, Nina, for following us. Also, thank you, Austin, for sharing the stream. And I'm just going to do a brief introduction really quick. I'm Brendan. For anyone who doesn't know me, I am Edgy Erebus. We are joined today by Jacob and Mark. Jacob, go ahead and do a brief introduction about yourself.
Hello, I'm Jacob. I'm one of the co-creators of The Hero's Tale. You can find me at PKJ Gaming on Twitter.
Okay. Mark?
And I'm Mark, father to these two goons, and also co-creator of The Hero's Tale. We'll be talking a little bit about that.
And where do people find you?
The Hero's Tale, at The Hero's Tale THT.
Okay. Today we're going to be talking about a couple of things. One thing is that we're going to be mentioning our game. But we're going to be talking about role-playing games in general. And specifically, whether it's better to do theater of the mind, using little stand-in placeholders, or to use miniatures. And it just got incredibly dark in my room the moment that the stream started. Let's fix it. So with that, let's get started with that. The Hero's Tale is a role-playing game. It is similar to Dungeons & Dragons in the sense that it is a fantasy-style tabletop role-playing game. However, it is genre agnostic, so you can switch between fantasy, sci-fi, urban fantasy.
Oh, one of these days I want to try a slice of life story.
That would be fun.
And a Western. I'd like to do a Western fantasy. Yeehaw.
Full Western, but with eldritch hoarders.
Yeah!
With that,
What is that?
there's this poem thing that I saw on Reddit ages ago, and it was like how witches are the cowboys of the night. Alrighty, thank you. Let's see if I can.
And a quick shout out. I really appreciate just folks jumping in and listening to us.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
The song just ended, by the way. They're letting me know that I need to turn the volume down.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Let me jump in real quick while he's doing that and say that creating the Hero's Tale as a gaming system, we made it a lot more story-driven than a lot of systems. It's much more streamlined. It's much less crunchy. But creating it with these two guys has been a wonderful experience. And as we get into this whole gaming thing, as we get into talking about game mastering and story creating and character creating across these podcasts, you'll get to see how much fun this all is. So, what's our first topic today, Brendan?
So today we're doing our creature feature with the ghosts. So ghosts are our creature of the week, creature feature, whatever we want to call it. There's a couple points of contention about running ghosts and spirits in role-playing games. One of the big things is player possession.
I hate it when I don't keep up with my bills and then I get repossessed.
Uh-huh. Oh boy, this is going to be a long live stream. So, that is one big thing I want to talk about right now, is to possess players or not to possess players. It does take away agency, and it can make things a bit trickier. Now, one thing.
So I've had a bit of experience with this in my years of gaming. I can remember one particular situation where I had a character who got possessed, but it wasn't really a full dominating possession. It was just like this spirit or essence started giving him impulses, and I kept slipping him notes saying, I mean, he had basic control over himself as a player, but I kept slipping him notes like the players wanted to go do something and go in this particular part of the dungeon, and I slipped him a note that says, you don't want to do that. And he kind of played it pretty well, because all of a sudden he'd just look at that and he'd go, oh, okay. So, and then he'd start playing like he was trying to convince the others not to. So I just kept slipping him these notes, and people started looking at it like, what's going on here?
I have some bad experiences with player possession.
Yeah, I imagine we can all have some bad ones too.
So,
I can remember one game I was in where we were questing for these wands of power, and these wands made you, like, if you were deemed unworthy, it changed your alignment and basically possessed you in that way. However, our DM did not give us plenty of warning that it, well, he did, but he decided to make it a DC 25 Constitution save.
So it was very difficult to overcome.
And he had things in place for the dungeon that would have made it easier for us, but here's the thing. He had it guarded by hundreds of ghosts. Speaking of
ghosts.
And here's the thing. We thought we were being stealthy and clever. But because we basically stealth past everything, those systems he had in place to make it easier, to make the check easier, we never got.
Right.
Yeah.
So, a couple things about player possession that I've learned in my time is to give them as much agency as possible within the possession. Things like, I had a player who's in the chat who would every so often be taken over by her warlock patron.
What would that be?
Whenever she was taken over, she herself would have control, but she would know who to attack. For the most part. There were a few instances where stuff needed to happen and he would take over. But I feel as though giving your players the highest amount, a ghost possessing you is not going to cause. He won't know how to use all of your skills and abilities, so it's easier for him to turn your mind and give the players the agency to do those things, to attack in the way that they are able to.
Here's the thing that really, here's the thing that really made me salty, is when he turned that guy chaotic evil. The wands also gave him a 9th level spell slot.
Yeah, so that seems more like a DM by DM thing. One thing I do want to look at really quick is the ghost stat block for Dungeons and Dragons. That's not exactly what we're talking about here, but Dungeons and Dragons, I cannot talk today, is a very well-renowned system, and I'd like to at least mention a few things about what its system has to say about ghosts. So for ghosts, possession is one of the big things. So the ghost takes over the body, but keeps the ghost's same intelligence, wisdom, and charisma score. Which is kind of an interesting thing to me. It gains possession of all of the other statistics, but it does not gain access to the target's knowledge, class features, or proficiencies. So in the simple ghost, the only thing that the ghost can do is attack. That includes spellcasting. It does not get access to. So a ghost would not be able to use your spells. At least the basic ghost as written. Now let's talk really quick for just a minute about how to run a ghost, because I think that is something that can be a ton of fun.
Floated.
Ahaha. Rosie de Bear, thank you for the follow. I think, no, Rosie Ledebear. I'm so sorry. I am awful with names, and I cannot read, apparently.
But thank you for following anyway.
Yes. Oh, Ari. Hey.
Hey. We know you.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So one
Let
thing
me
about
jump
running
in
ghosts.
really quick too while you're talking about stats and things like this. In the sample module of the Hero's Tale, you're trying to clean out a haunted abbey, and there are a bunch of ghosts and spirits in there, but they're not set up to. They're kind of weak. They're not set up to possess. Yeah, it's more just a combat situation, but it's kind of cool because the way I've set it up is it'll actually, when it hits you, it'll actually temporarily sap your stats, weakening you, in addition to doing actual damage. And then, of course, they can't be affected by normal weaponry. And so I had to set up in the module lots of instances where they can either find magical weapons or enchant or enhance magical weapons, even on a temporary basis, not like a full crafting kind of thing. So it's kind of a cool spooky monster to run, and especially if your players are new and they don't really know what's on the particular ghost stat block, they can be quite tense about, oh my gosh, what can these ghosts do? What are they going to do to me? Kind of a thing. Another cool thing about ghosts and spirits is that if it's not just a mob, you can actually give it a personality. It can actually become an NPC. And you could even give it a backstory. If it's supposed to deliver information or if it's supposed to be an opponent. Maybe even if it does possess, you can actually give it a backstory so that the backstory can tie into why he's possessing a particular character or what he's wanting the character to do, so that the party can figure out how to depossess. There's just some really cool storyline possibilities that you can pull off with a good ghost story.
A great example of that is I always pronounce it wrong, the Obzedat in Ravnica, which is a world from Magic the Gathering that has been published as an official D&D campaign setting, and they are a council of ghosts, each with their own unique features and abilities, that are running.
They run the Bank of Orzhov?
They do. They run Orzhov.
Yeah.
And they are a series of ghosts.
I still remember the time that we tried to rob Orzhov. And we actually pulled it off.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
granted, they.
I think they killed one of you.
Yeah, but minor sacrifices.
But yeah, so it's really interesting. And one thing that I've loved the idea of with ghosts is because they are unique individuals and they are individual people, you are able to do simple things like giving this one a cantrip that it knew in life. You know, a simple spell or something like that that maybe the other ghosts have, and that doesn't necessarily make him that much stronger, but it adds that bit of uniqueness, and it's really fun to be able to do something like that and then create an adventuring party that in the deepest layer of the dungeon, you know, that made it down there but died to the final creature, and then it doesn't want the other players to succeed because they failed. They're all very bitter and dark. And so you have this entire party, one that's like a spellcaster type wizard, or a type spirit, and then you have the spirit of a large creature with a large spiritual greatsword that cleaves and does psychic damage through passing through multiple enemies. Things like that. The rogue that dashes through you instead of stabbing through you, and it, you know, rips away your life force. Things like that. You can come up with all sorts of unique features and abilities for homebrew ghosts. Really quick, I want to touch on let's talk about how you can make running spirits interesting in the setup, the foreshadowing of running spirits. In that module that you were talking about, Mark, the
Haunted Abbey of Havenberg.
Right. In that, how do you set up to make the ghosts, you know, appear to be somewhat scary or appear to, how do you set them up for that?
Well, setup is a big part of it, like you say. First of all, the party is hired to clear out the abbey. That there's been spooky stuff going in this little farming village, and the townspeople are terrified to even go out at night, and so they're already set up with the notion that they've been seeing ghosts and stuff like that. So when they come into the village to do the job, and the village is so excited to see these folks from the Adventurers Guild who are going to finally get rid of these ghosts, and then, of course, they get to the abbey, and it's this old abandoned chapel with a graveyard in the yard, and it just, you know, is a typical old Gothic church. So you just really set up to be spooky in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first time they encounter them, then they do a lot of that thing like that fly-through that you're talking about, the fly-through attacks, where they just scream and fly through you, soaking up some of your life essence, in this case, interpreted as sucking away some of your attribute scores. All of that based on die rolls and defensive rolls, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the characters have to deal with this new thing that's not corporeal, and they swing their regular swords at it and they zip right through, and then somebody suddenly discovers that, oh, my +1 sword that I found is now, I mean, it's designed for novice players and novice characters, so there's not a lot of magic weaponry going on anyway.
Right.
But that sets up the whole fear thing, and then they finally encounter the shadow wizard who's running them all, and they defeat him, and you know, it's pretty typical and standard stuff. One of the twists that I did when I was first running this particular adventure is, as the group discovers how to fight them and then actually defeats them, and that they would sort of scream their unworldly scream, and as they're vanishing, they would basically thank the characters for finally freeing them from this spell that
Curse.
The shadow wizard, from the curse, yes, that the shadow wizard had them under.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of a cool twist, I thought.
One thing really... sorry, just one quick thing, Jacob. I agree with Austin that it's an interesting encounter because as they fight more ghosts, they lose more attributes, which makes it harder to fight more ghosts, which makes it then more likely that they get hit and they lose more attributes. So as the Abbey, as they go further and further into the Abbey, it would make it harder and harder, which is kind of a oh crap, we need to defeat these things quickly, otherwise we're screwed. Sorry, what were you saying, Jacob?
Well, two things. One, well, I can't remember what one of them was, but I remember what one of them was. I feel as though, let's see, and one of the things I've always liked about the Haunted Abbey of Havenberg adventure is that it could be spun off into other adventures, and because of the way it works, because we have pre-generated characters, you can just get into it right away and start playing. You don't have to spend an hour creating characters, because pre-generated characters. Of course, that's not to say that you can't use like homemade characters. It just makes it easier to introduce the game to people.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun being able to run that. I've run that a couple of times, that module, and it's really fun because it's simple enough that new players can understand it, but it's also like challenging enough that veteran players go, oh, I need to make sure I'm not taking that many hits, because otherwise, I'm going to be sitting with a -3 strength wielding a greatsword, and that's a problem.
It's hard to wield a sword you can't even lift.
I want to answer one question from the chat really quick, and then we're going to move on to our next topic. How do you defeat a ghost? Yeah. So it's up for debate. Most people assume that when you're fighting a spirit, you're dispatching it back to where spirits rest in whatever world you're in. In ours, it's a section of a place called the Vast. That it sends them to.
Vast isn't really a place. Well, it is.
It's
read the book. You'll get it.
No, you won't. The Vast is a complicated thing. But that's the common way, or the common wording for it is that you're just sending them back to where ghosts normally go by weakening their spirit enough that they are no longer able to stay where they are. Or in some instances, you attack and defeat the ghost using magical weapons and things like that, to try and destroy the essence of the ghost if it's not anchored in another place, things of that sort. Excuse me. With that, let's move on to our next section, and that is to Meeples or miniatures. Yeah. We have a bit of a mixed opinion on this. It's going to be an interesting debate. I am 100% pro minis. I love painting minis, and so I have, a lot of them. Let's see if I can get a good angle on that. These are just a few examples. But we had designed this game to try and be as simple as possible, and because of that, my dad and brother prefer to use. We have a box of chess pieces.
If counters are involved, I prefer minis.
Well, let's clarify this whole prefer thing. Because really it's a question of preference versus possibility.
Right.
So, yeah, looking out over a tabletop with all kinds of beautifully created terrain and or buildings with expertly painted stone floors, and it's just gorgeous and it's amazing. And then they got beautifully painted monsters, and each player has their own figure, and you're trudging through the dungeon. Yeah, there's nothing like looking over a table and seeing that. But that's a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort, and it doesn't really change the story. So I like to think that, you can just get a magic marker on some what do you call that, dry erase, a big dry erase board on the tabletop, and sketch in the
It's called a
buildings.
battle mat.
Yeah, battle mat. And use chess pieces if that's all you got, or they're actual counters that a lot of tabletop games call that are shaped like people standing like this. They look a lot like
That's what a Meeple is.
yeah, they look a lot like Patrick Star. And it's just based on what you got. And then and actually Jake does this a lot more, so I'll defer to him. When he uses theater of the mind for battle. Tell us about that, Jake.
Well, particularly for smaller groups, I think theater of the mind is just a lot easier as far as particularly for smaller groups. I think theater of the mind is a lot easier because you don't have to set up everything just for like 3 or 4 minis. However, bigger groups, it's impossible to do. Well, it's not impossible to do theater of the mind style, but like 6 or 7 players, it gets a little unwieldy. So bigger groups, I tend to like to actually have a board. We're not sponsored by them, but one software I really love is, it's not really a software, but it's an online browser service called Roll20.
Roll20 is fantastic. I use that for all of my online games. Again, not sponsored, but if you wanted to sponsor us,
Yeah,
send us an
money.
email. But yeah.
If I might add something, and I hope I don't tread on anything personal for you, Jake, but I think that one of the reasons why you do so well with theater of the mind is because of your cerebral palsy. I think it's a lot easier for you to just think of what's going on in your head rather than try and moving figures around. Although sometimes when we all play together, you'll say, "Oh, please move my figure over that way," and have me attack that guy. So it all works out. Is that okay to say? I do want to make sure that we can talk about how to make your table more inclusive. Go ahead.
I mean, like, I feel as though I started to implement movement speed into my online games, and it's nice. Not really into my online games, but every so often I'll actually start worrying about movement speed. And sometimes I'll do that theater of the mind style, but sometimes it is easier to just have a mat or a board there to help you count stairs and steps. One reason I do like battle mat style is it allows you to keep track of your spatial awareness and actually keep track of environment. So
And
a player or DM could use the environment to their advantage.
and everyone's on the same page when you're doing battle mat style, because everyone can see where it is, rather than, well, am I close enough to do this, or am I, which has always been my issue with Theater of the Mind.
Ultimately, though, I really think everybody's going to use what is available at the moment. Liliana here mentioned she used squishy figures for the characters and little red glass pebbles for the
enemies.
Yeah, so you use what you got.
Sometimes we just use a bag of like insects.
Yeah, we got like one of those dollar store like plastic insect containers, and we'll use those because they're large creatures essentially. However, I do have to say,
dinosaurs too.
There
I
was
used to go into thrift stores and buy all the big plastic dinosaurs I could, because those make great
placeholders. There have been 2 instances that I'm specifically aware of for me where minis have made the difference. In our final battle from my last campaign that I ran, it was all online, so it wasn't an actual miniature, but I had purchased an animated miniature for the online tabletop, for Roll20. And when I moved the players over to the map and I put on that miniature and they saw this large animated figure, it was like I got several comments on that throughout the night. And in my opinion, it added to the intensity. And it helped set it up. So if you are able to use miniatures or use things, I think that you definitely should. The other instance, I was a player in it, and we were about to fight an adult blue dragon. This was in person, and this is a young blue dragon. So it's pretty decent size, but this is young.
I thought you just said adult.
No, this one sorry. Oh, you guys can't see my webcam. I am holding up a young blue dragon mini, and it's a decent size. When he put down this absolutely massive blue dragon miniature, fully painted, it was like a put up or shut up moment. Like, we knew that was going to be the fight of our lives, and in one instance, it cost one of our lives. And so it made the whole scenario set up as like an oh crap, this is happening.
Yeah, that has a lot more impact than this.
Yes. Or a crappy dollar store giant,
Dinosaur.
It also, one thing that I have found, yeah, go ahead.
I will say also, you can get that same effect sort of through Theater of the Mind if you describe it well.
And honestly, this is one of the reasons I like playing under Brendan as a game master so much, is because even if he has a good figure, he goes into detail describing the ferociousness of this monster that's going to eat me alive. And he does a very good job of it. And that's actually a good topic for us to talk about some week, is how to enhance the emotional experience of an encounter instead of just rolling dice.
I'm gonna say this as like a piece of advice for aspiring DMs. Anytime you can hear your players go ooh or ah,
that's a win.
That's a win.
Yeah. And minis is one way. I personally don't think, I think terrain looks like it's a lot of fun. it takes a lot of time to set up before sessions and things like that, and costs a lot of money and takes a lot of time to make. I don't personally care for that much. But miniatures, one thing I found is that even just having miniatures that are roughly the same size and shape, so, you know, getting a bunch of humanoid miniatures for scale and things like that, that helps out, even in my opinion, better than Meeples do. But like Nina said, Meeples. Thank you, Austin. I agree. I like running brutal creatures. No, not at all.
You ran us up against.
Oh yeah, that was fun. That was. Anyway, but it's an interesting dichotomy, because on the one hand, I would enjoy a game for sure, even if all we had were squishy figures and little red glass pebbles.
I mean, that's how we used to do it.
Uh-huh. However, if you have miniatures, even if they are not the right miniature, I feel it is significantly better to have the miniatures on the table. And I know that money is obviously something that can be a bit difficult, but I definitely would encourage players to pick out a miniature for their character from a game store or something like that.
Role-playing games are an expensive hobby.
They are, in general, for the most part.
And that sucks you in and makes you pay!
Yep.
Run while you still can!
Although D&D gives you free rules that let you try the game.
Yeah.
So, it's a toss-up. I prefer miniatures, but I would also never leave a table because they didn't have them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way to describe it, is that if you got them, great. If you can get them, even better. But
there's a great website that lets you, again, not sponsored or anything, but there's a great website called Hero Forge.
Hero Forge is fantastic.
Allows you to make your own custom minis, and you can order them pre-painted as long as you have, you know,
the
money.
Kraken. It was the Kraken, Austin, and yeah, we should. That'd be fun. But with that, I think that starts to wrap up our topic. I do really like Hero Forge. Nice thing about Hero Forge is that if you pay them like a short monthly subscription, you can create tokens for online tabletop role-playing games.
Like Roll20.
I'm sorry.
Like Roll20. Yeah. So you design them, and then you can set up tokens or profile pictures for your D&D Beyond character, or things like that are fantastic.
How much?
It's like $5 a month or something like that. It's super cheap.
Dang, I need to get a Hero Forge subscription.
Or if you're playing in an actual game, you could pay like $20 to get your custom mini. Or you could pay like $40 if you don't like painting minis and get your custom mini pre-painted. And I think that's fantastic. It's a lot of money for a single mini, but if you're going in a year-long campaign, you know, and that's your mini, it's, you know, $40 is less than $4 a month for a year-long campaign. With that, I think we should dive into our final section, which is basically we're going to rant about our game while you guys ask us random questions about anything you've heard today.
So let me take on the game stuff, because I have copies of everything right here. This is the Hero's Tale. As I mentioned before, it's a tabletop role-playing game that is intended to be very streamlined, quick to learn. story-driven, family-friendly. We've been playing it in our family for about 6 years now.
Got to be longer than that because I was 16, so that's almost 8
I don't
years.
think we're even younger than that.
Was that?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we started when I was in when I just started junior high.
That's right. So I would have been about 14. So that's about 9 years.
Yeah.
So that's great. And we, 9 years. Anyway, so this summer I'm working on 2nd edition. And
I'm working on some supplemental material for 2nd edition.
So here in a moment, I'm going to post up the Amazon links. And if you happen to buy the 1st edition, then you can contact us and we will send you a copy of 2nd edition later in the summer when it's done. And then you have a collector's item and the new version too. Woohoo! Bonus.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, this is a new book that I just finished called Roll Dice Build Character. It's kind of our tagline. This is all about gaming as a family. And about 150 pages. Great read.
Yeah.
All about all the benefits of, and we'll probably do a couple of episodes about our experiences as a family gaming together.
Mhm.
Like there was one time, I can still remember the time that you had us rescue a bunch of refugees. And that was an interesting debate because we spent like a half hour of the 4-hour session just
debating what to do, making the choice.
Yeah.
So we'll probably talk about that too.
Yep.
Players
And
will
then
remember that.
The last plug is the novels, A Tale of Heroes. So we mentioned the pre-made characters for the Haunted Abbey of Hafenburg, which is the module in this book. I took those characters, fleshed them out, and novelized some adventures in the world of Wynn. And
which is the kind of our Faerun.
Yeah. And it's a great adventure. You can go check that out at ataleofheroes.com. You can get more information about the game at theheroestale.com. And yeah.
Alrighty.
Anybody have any good questions for us?
Yeah, anything about the about what you've seen or heard today?
Ooh, Krull comes up with a really cool question about adjusting to younger age groups, like really younger age groups. And yes, actually, it is very adaptable to that. It's very easy to simplify. First of all, I find that at a game con here in Salt Lake area, we ran a couple of demos, and in the game there was an 8-year-old and it was a 9 and a 7-year-old who joined in to our game. And I found that even at that age, they were pretty easy to adapt.
Kids are just adults with less experience.
Yeah. I found that the Hero's Tale was simple enough and streamlined enough that they didn't need a lot of technical explanations even to create the characters. That character creation went pretty quickly. And once we got into the game, it's so story focused that they didn't really have a lot of problems with the game mechanics. So the game as it is worked pretty well even with kids as young as 8, 9-ish. If you did with anybody younger than that, yeah, I'd probably simplify the mechanics even further and deal more straight into the imagination and the story.
Maybe give them like pre-generated characters and whatnot.
Yeah. Although sometimes what kids really like is, I want to be this kind of guy. So you can do that, and maybe you create that on the character sheet, and focus less and less on mechanics. This is actually a lot of stuff that I talk about in the book. There's the cool thing is any system really, even D&D, can be adapted to younger audiences. In fact, there are a number of games that are specifically intended for really young kids, like Hero Kids. There's a My Little Pony role-playing game. Austin says bending the rules to your imagination. Yeah, let the imagination be the game and not the rules. Yeah, very much so, Austin. So that's my answer to that question. Thanks for asking.
Alrighty. We only have a couple more minutes. And one thing that I would like to do, I don't know if we have enough people actually like active in the chat, but for the last like 3 or so minutes, I'm going to start a poll for what monster we should do for next week's creature feature.
And also, do you have any ideas for our next topic?
Yeah, so
Post them up in the chat.
Post those in the chat, but I'm actually going to be starting a poll for the monster, the creature feature. So dragons, fiends, hags, or DMPCs? DM player characters.
I know this is a poll for the audience, but DMPCs is something I'm interested in talking about.
Yeah, and we'll do all of these.
If we did hags, you could talk about when you did that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'd have to be very careful with that because that's still going on.
Yeah, I don't want to reveal too much.
So don't want to reveal too much for our game. But for the last couple of minutes, I just figure if you are here, feel free to take a vote. If you're not here and you're just listening, well, hello. You get to hear the sounds of our sweet melodic voices while everyone else votes.
Hey, Brandon.
Yeah?
Because I had that problem logging into Twitch, it's not letting me access the chat, so I'm going to send you all of the links.
Alrighty.
And if you'll copy and paste that into the chat,
Yeah.
this is the link
I
for
also,
the book.
now that I'm thinking about it, you probably wouldn't be able because I don't have you modded yet. So,
mod me.
Yeah, well, as soon as that whole thing with your account works.
Yeah.
But where did you
I
send
love
them?
Technology.
Oh, I see.
Actually, I texted them to you in
Messenger.
Actually, I should have done it in the.
Can you send it in Discord?
Yeah, I sent it in Facebook. Because I'm an old man, and only old men use Facebook.
So if you would like to pick...
Get off of my lawn!
Up one of the books, there they are in chat. But it's seeming like we're almost out of time, and the only vote at all is, I assume, by Thad, since he mentioned DMPCs are a good topic, and so that is probably what we're going to be doing.
Cool. Is that going to be our main topic, or is that going to
DMPCs.
be our creature feature?
That'll probably be our creature feature, and we may even want to like blend that over into the main topic. Do
Cool.
DMPC, do the creature features, how to run a DMPC, and then how DMPCs work as our main topic. Alrighty, with that, is there any more questions as the vote timer counts down? We're gonna just wait a moment because stream delay. Thanks, Thad. This video, the video for this is going to be going up on
The Hero's Tale
YouTube channel. DMPC's won!
I tried to vote for dragons, but couldn't log in. You know how that is.
I specifically put dragons because there's a character in in our Monday morning group, which will be starting in about an hour, that he's terrified that everything is run by dragons. So,
like
already,
he's a conspiracy theorist about dragons.
Yes.
A medieval conspiracy theorist about dragons.
It's fantastic. There's a merchant guild named the Merchant Scales, because, you know, balancing scales, and he is absolutely convinced that the Merchant Scales is based off of a dragon because of the word scales, and it's run and owned by a dragon.
Dragons.
Yeah.
Dragons.
Alrighty.
Why it always have to be dragons?
Yeah, they're gonna be every Monday morning around.
We need to shoot for about 10 o'clock so that Jake can have
about 10 o'clock MST.
Therapy.
Or we're not in daylight savings, right? It's MST right now.
I have no idea what it is.
Mountain
it's
time.
10 o'clock in Utah.
10 o'clock Mountain time. So with that, I think we're going to end today's stream. Just one more time, you can find me at Edgy Erebus on Twitter. Jacob, you can find at PKJake Gaming on Twitter, and you can find Mark at The Hero's Tale THT on Twitter. The video is going live on the Hero's Tale YouTube channel. Thanks for everyone tuning in. We actually managed to have an average viewership of 7 to 8 people the entire stream. So thank you all for that. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we will catch you all next time.
We got some pretty good audience participation too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Thank you all for chatting with us and joining us for this. And we'll see you all next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.